The auction hall was large and cold. The walls were made of gray metal, and the lights above gave off a soft white glow. There was no music, no voices, just the low hum of machines. And the sound of quiet footsteps. Marlin walked slowly with his hands behind his back. He was tall and thin with silver hair and a long brown coat. His boots made soft clicks on the floor as he moved from one display to the next. His eyes were kind but tired, and his back was not as straight as it used to be. The hall was filled with cages. Inside them were beings from many worlds. Some looked like tall insects, others had smooth skin and shining eyes. A few were asleep while others stared without blinking. None of them smiled. None of them spoke. They were not here by choice. Each cage had a small screen that showed the price and a short list of skills. Some had been trained for cleaning, some for carrying heavy boxes, others for cooking or data work. All were being sold to strangers. Marlin did not like this place. He had not come to buy anyone. He had come because he was curious. The auction house was famous across the sector, but Marlin had never stepped inside it before. Still, he walked slowly past the cages, looking at each one with a thoughtful face. Then he saw Hirsch was sitting in the farthest corner of the hall in a small cage made of clear walls. She was very still, almost like a statue. Her skin was pale like silver clay, and her arms were thin. She had no hair and no shoes. A long gray cloth was wrapped around her like a robe. Her eyes were large and silver with tiny rings of light in them. Her mouth was closed but not tight. Her face showed no fear, no anger, no hope. The screen beside her cage had only 3 words: no teeth, no speech, low value. Marlin stood there for a long time. He looked at her face, at her hands folded neatly on her lap, at her bare feet. She did not look back at him. A staff worker in a blue suit walked over and stopped beside Marlin. Old model, the worker said. Came in last week from a failed mining colony. Nobody wants her. No language, no tools, no use. We'll probably send her off for recycling soon. Marlin turned his head slightly but did not speak. You want something with function, sir, the worker added kindly. We have some fine, strong units from Dreval, or a few fast cleaners from New Coram. Good prices today. Marlin shook his head once. How much for her? He asked. The worker blinked in surprise. For her? He asked again, as if he had heard wrong. Yes. Marlin said. The worker checked the screen again and cleared his throat. She's 20 credits, he said, same as scrap value. I'll take her, said Marlin. The worker stared, then gave a slow nod and tapped his device. We'll bring her to your ship, the worker said. You sure you don't want a service contract or neural band add-on? No, Marlin said. No bands, no contracts. Just bring her as she is. As Marlin left the auction hall, the pale girl was being led behind him by 2 quiet machines. She walked slowly, not looking up, not speaking. Marlin's ship was parked in Dock Bay 7. It was an old freighter with soft orange lights and a name printed on the side in faded paint. The amber leaf inside the ship, everything was warm and quiet. The walls were lined with books, tools, and soft chairs. A small heater glowed in the corner, and a pot of tea was steaming gently on a tray. Marlin opened the door and let the girl step inside. She paused at the edge of the room, looking unsure. You can sit, Marlin said, pointing to the chair across from him. She looked at the chair, then at him, then slowly sat down. Her hand stayed in her lap. Her eyes moved carefully across them. Marlin poured her a cup of tea and placed it on the table between them. It's not very sweet, he said, but it's warm. She did not reach for the cup. She kept her eyes on the floor. What's your name? He sketched, looked up slightly, then back down. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. It's all right, Marlin said gently. You don't need to speak. Not today. He leaned back in his chair and looked at her carefully. You're safe here, he said. No chains, no orders. Just rest. She blinked once. A slow blink, like a thought was passing through her mind. She looked at the tea again. This time her fingers moved toward the cup. Her hands were shaking. She lifted the cup slowly and held it with both hands. It was too hot at first, but she did not pull away. She brought it close and took a small sip. Her face did not change, but her hands stopped shaking. Marlin watched her for a moment, then stood up and walked toward the hallway rooms to the left. He said, bed's soft. There's a blanket. Sleep as long as you want. She did not move. She just sat there with the tea still in her hands. Marlin paused before turning off the lights. My name's Marlin, he said. You'll learn that in time. Maybe I'll learn yours too. He left her sitting in the warm light with the cup near her lips. In the quiet hum of the ship all around Heron for the first time in many years. The girl who had no name, no voice, and no teeth was not afraid. She was just quiet and free. The ship moved gently through space. The stars outside blinked like small candles. Inside the amber leaf, all was calm. The engine made a soft hum like a lullaby. Tilla sat on the bed in her new room. It was not large, but it was warm. The walls were smooth and silver. A small light glowed in the ceiling. There was a table with a soft cloth on it. A pair of simple shoes sat by the door. They were not shiny or new, but they were clean. She looked down at the blanket covering her legs. It was thick and soft and smelled faintly of something sweet. She had never slept under a blanket before. She had only known cold floors and metal corners. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her fingers were thin but healing. A small cut on her thumb was almost gone. She had found a bandage in the drawer beside the bed. No one had shouted when she opened it. No alarm had gone off. The door was not locked. She had tested it 4 times. Marlin sat in the kitchen area. He was reading something from a screen. His tea was cooling beside him. The kettle let out a slow hiss now and then. He heard light footsteps. He did not look up. Tilla stood in the doorway. Her blanket was wrapped around her shoulders. Her silver eyes were half hidden behind the folds of the fabric. You slept, Marlin said without turning his head. She gave a small nod. You hungry? He a sketch paused, then nodded again. Marlin stood up and opened a small box. He took out a soft bun and a boiled root. He placed both on a plate and added a small spoon of honey on the sit. Handed her the plate and pointed to the chair across from him. Tilla sat down slowly. She looked at the food carefully. Then she began to eat with her fingers. Her bites were slow. She had no teeth, but the bun was soft. Enough. Marlin watched her eat. He did not rush her. You don't have to clean, he said after a moment. She stopped eating and looked up at him. You don't have to wash floors or fix wires or carry tools, he said again. You are not here to serve. She looked confused and pointed at her gently. You are here because I wanted to give you peace. That's all. Tilla lowered her eyes. She touched the edge of her blanket. Do you know what this is called? He asked as he tapped the edge of the table. She looked at it and shook her head. This is wood, he said, from a tree, from earth, very old. My grandfather made this table. Tilla placed her hand on the table and ran her fingers over the lines in the wood. It felt warm and alive. Would you like to learn the names of things? He a sketch nodded slowly. Marlin smiled and opened a drawer. He took out a small board with a screen and stylus. This is for writing, he said. If you can't speak, you can still write. You can learn. He slid the board across the table. Tilla picked it up carefully. The surface lit up. She touched it gently with the stylus. A soft line appeared. She blinked and touched it again. Another line appeared. Marlin laughed softly. You're doing it, he said. Tilla looked at the board, then back at him. Her eyes were wide. You don't need to be afraid of mistakes, he said. Mistakes are just part of learning. Tilla touched the board again and slowly tried to draw a letter. It was not clear, but it was a start. Marlin watched with quiet pride. Later that day, he brought her the shoes from beside her bed. Try these, he said. She looked at the shoes, then at her own bare feet. Slowly, she took the shoes in her hands. They were made of soft cloth and light rubber. She slipped one foot and then the other. They fit. Stood up and took a step, then another. Her face showed surprise. The shoes did not hurt. They did not press. They're not new, Marlin said, but they were mine once. Now they are yours. Tilla nodded and sat back down. Her fingers touched the shoes like they were treasure with it. Evening. Marlin brought out a small music player. He pressed a button and soft sounds filled the room. Tilla froze for a moment, then turned her head toward the sound. It's called music, Marlin said, from Earth. My wife used to play this every night. Tilla tilted her head as if trying to catch every note. You don't have to understand it, he said, just feel it. She closed her eyes for a moment, her shoulders relaxed. You can stay here as long as you want, Marlin said. This ship is old and slow, but it is safe. Tilla opened her eyes again. She touched the writing board and slowly drew another shape. It was almost like a letter. Marlin nodded. You'll learn fast, he said for the first time. She gave a small smile. Not wide, not bright, but soft like a cloud passing the sun. Marlin poured 2 cups of tea and placed one in front of her. No rush, she said. We have time. She lifted the cup with both hands. The tea was warm and sweet. She took a small sip and closed her eyes. Outside the ship, stars moved past like slow lanterns in the sky. Inside the ship, the girl without a voice began to find her way back to being whole, not through orders or chains, but through blankets, shoes, and tea. The days on the amber leaf passed quietly. Each morning, Marlin would drink his tea and check the ship's systems. Tilla would sit near the window with her writing board, drawing shapes and learning letters. She still did not speak, but now she looked people in the eyes. Now she smiled sometimes. Marlin kept his promises. He gave her space. He gave her rest. He gave her time. And slowly, without being told, Tilla started to follow him around the ship. Not to serve him, but to understand. She watched how he worked, how he repaired wires, how he made soup from dried roots and soft grains. She watched how he hummed softly while dusting his old tools. One day, Tilla noticed something new. There was a door near the back of the ship. It was small, round, and always locked. Unlike the other doors, it had no label, no lights, just a smooth metal surface. She stood in front of it for a while. Her hand reached out to touch it, but she pulled back. She did not try to open it, not yet. That evening, she sat at the table with Marlin. Her tea was warm. Her shoes were clean. Her blanket lay folded on the chair beside her. She tapped her writing board and showed him a single word, room. Marlin looked at the word for a moment. He placed his cup down. He did not answer right away. Instead, he stood up and walked toward the round door. Tilla followed. He placed his hand on the scanner beside it. A soft click sounded. The door slid open with a slow hiss. Inside was a room unlike any other part of the ship. Tilla stepped in slowly. Her eyes grew wide. The walls were made of glass. Sunlight, fake but warm, shone down from panels in the ceiling. The air was damp and smelled like leaves after rain. Small green plants grew from the soil beds. Some had red flowers. Others had tiny blue fruits. Long vines hung from the corners of the ceiling, curling like ribbons. Tilla had never seen anything like it. This is the garden room, Marlin said softly. He walked inside and picked a dry leaf off one of the plants. His hands were careful. My wife loved plants, he said. She grew everything here herself. Even after the soil turned dry on our homeworld, she kept seeds in glass jars. When she passed, I kept them safe. Tilla knelt near a pot filled with soft moss. She touched it gently, feeling the cool texture under her fingers. She used to sit here for hours, Marlin said. She said plants listen, even when no one else does. Tilla looked up at him, then back at the moss. She touched her writing board again. Can I help? Marlin gave a small smile. Of course, he said. It's yours now, too. The next day, Marlin brought her a small set of tools, a wooden spoon, a water bottle with a long neck, a cloth for wiping leaves. Tilla started slow. She did not want to break anything. But Marlin showed her how to loosen the soil, how to water the roots, not the leaves, how to pull weeds with soft hands. Each day, she learned more. She learned the names of the flowers. She learned which ones needed more light and which ones liked the dark corners. She made a small section of the garden her own. She placed smooth stones around it and lined the pots in neat rows. She did not decorate much, but everything had care. One afternoon, while wiping dust from a wide-leaf plant, she began to hum. It was soft, almost silent, just a single note that rose and fell. Marlin was in the doorway. He paused when he heard it. You have a good ear, he said. Music helps the plants grow. That's what my wife believed. Tilla looked at him and hummed again. This time she let the note stretch a little longer. That night, Marlin brought her a small speaker and placed it in the garden room. He played gentle music, soft tones from old earth songs. Tilla listened with her eyes closed, seated between 2 tall plants with yellow blossoms. Later, she touched her board and wrote 2 words, "Thank you." Marlin did not ask what she meant. He only nodded and said, "You're welcome." As days passed, the plants in the room began to grow faster. Flowers bloomed wider. The blue fruits became sweeter. Tilla's hands became steady. Her touch became sure. The amber leaf was still an old ship. It creaked when it turned. Its lights flickered sometimes, but now it carried something more than cargo. It carried life. It carried color. And in the center of that color was a girl who once lived in a cage, now learning how to grow things that would never be chained. Tilla sat near the garden window. Her hands were covered in soft dirt. A small plant with round red leaves sat in front of her. It was growing well. She smiled at it, then wiped her hands on a cloth. She had learned many things. She now knew how to grow moss, how to fix a leaky pipe, and how to make sweet tea using dried herbs. Her letters were better too. She could write short messages on the board without help. Still, one thing had not changed. She could not speak. Her people had once been known for their voices. They had a language made of tones, hums, and gentle rhythm. It was more than just sound. It was emotion. When they sang, others felt peace or joy or kindness. But Tilla could no longer make those sounds. Her throat was damaged. Her teeth were gone. Her voice, once natural, had been silenced for many years. One day, Marlin entered the garden room with a small silver box in his hands. It had wires, a screen, and a soft blue light on the side. "I found this in storage," he said. "It's an old translator. Might be useful." Tilla looked at the box with curious eyes. He sat beside her and placed it on the ground. "It was made to understand tones and feelings," he said. "Maybe it will help us hear your voice again, even if it's different." Tilla touched the device. Carefully, it was smooth and cool. Marlin showed her how to turn it on. A soft hum filled the air. The screen lit up. He pointed to a small circle. "Try making a sound here, even a hum." Tilla closed her eyes and placed her hand near her throat. Then she took a deep breath and made a soft hum. It was low and shaky, but it was a sound. The device blinked. A soft word appeared on the screen. "Calm." Marlin smiled. "See, it heard you." Tilla looked surprised. She tried again. Another hum, slightly higher. "Warmth," the screen said. She pressed both hands over her mouth. Her eyes were wide. She had not expected it to work. Marlin leaned back. "It's not perfect, but it understands feelings. That's more than most machines." Tilla kept humming small tones. Each time, a new word appeared. Peace, soft, safe, thankful. That night, Marlin opened a small box from his private shelf. Inside were old memory chips. He picked one and inserted it into a player. "I want to show you something," he said. The screen in the common room turned on. A soft blue light filled the space. A recording began to play. The video showed a forest with bright flowers and tall glowing trees. In the center stood a group of beings with silver eyes and soft skin. They looked like Tilla. They were not speaking, but humming together in harmony. Their voices blended like wind and water. The sound was clear and smooth. No translator was needed. Marlin spoke quietly. "This was recorded many years ago, before your people were taken, before their voices were broken." Tilla sat frozen. Her eyes were wide. Her hands rested on her knees. She watched the screen closely. The beings on the screen moved slowly in a circle. They hummed together. Their hands touched the plants. The air around them shimmered with color and music. Tilla placed her hand on her chest. Her breathing slowed. A soft sound escaped her throat. It was not strong, but it had rhythm. Marlin looked at her. "You remember it, don't you?" She nodded. He paused the video. "You can bring it back," he said, "even if the sound is quiet, even if it takes time." Tilla stood up and walked to the corner of the room. She picked up her writing board and slowly drew 3 letters. "Sing." Marlin nodded. "You may not sing like before," he said, "but you can still create sound. And that sound still carries meaning." The next morning, Tilla woke early. She went to the garden room and placed the translator near a group of young plants. She knelt in the soil and began to hum. The device lit up. "Joy." She hummed again. "Hope." The plant swayed gently under the air vents. A soft breeze passed through the room. Light from the ceiling fell on her shoulders like sunlight. Later that day, she found an empty box in the storage room. She filled it with soft cloth, seeds, and a few old chips with music. She placed the translator gently inside. Then she walked to Marlin and held up the box. He looked inside. "You want to keep these?" he asked. She nodded and tapped the board. "Voice box." He smiled. "It's a good name." Each day after that, she spent time with the voice box. She added new tones and sounds. The device slowly built a library of words just for her. She could now say good morning with a hum. She could say thank you with a soft note. She could say I am here with a simple hum rising and falling. It was not the same as a voice, but it was hers. And that was enough. The sky was soft blue when they reached the rocky hills. The path ahead was steep and uneven. Broken stone lay across the ground, and sharp roots pushed through cracks. The land here had changed after the quake. Trees were tilted, and deep lines cut across the hillsides. Ren looked at the scanner on his wrist. It showed a slow but clear path. The camp was not far now. Maybe one more day if they kept moving. Lena looked at him. "Are we close?" "Almost," he said. "Is the suit holding up?" "Yes." Lena watched his face. His voice was calm, but she noticed the slight pause in his answer. She had started to understand Ren's silence when he was quiet too long. Something was wrong. She didn't ask again. Instead, she leaned her head against his shoulder and stayed still. They moved up the hill slowly. The exhaust's legs adjusted to every step, lifting them higher. Small stones rolled under Ren's boots. The suit kept balance, but the noise it made was louder than before. Ren shifted Lena's weight slightly. His breath came slower. The scanner flashed again, this time with a red light. One of the suit's cooling systems was running hot. He tapped the control to lower power and let the system rest. But the hill kept climbing, and there was no flat place to stop. Lena opened her eyes again and spoke quietly. "Put me down for a while. Let the suit rest." "No," Ren said. "You need to save energy. We can stop for an hour." Ren kept walking. "I said I'll be fine," Lena whispered. "I know," Ren replied, "but I will carry you anyway." The wind picked up, moving dry leaves through the air. The hilltop looked close now. Just a little farther. Suddenly, a small rock gave way beneath Ren's foot. The suit shifted, but the weight made it slip. Ren stepped hard to the side to catch balance. His foot landed on another loose patch, and the suit tilted. He dropped to one knee, still holding Lena tightly. The suit made a sharp beeping sound. Lena felt the shift and reached out to grab a branch, but it snapped in her hand. Ryan adjusted quickly and pressed a command on the suit's panel. The legs locked in place, stopping the fall. His hand stayed firm around her, never letting go. Lena looked up at him, her face full of worry. "You're hurt." "I'm not," he said. "You dropped." The suit made a warning sound. Ren took a breath. His face was pale. Sweat lined his forehead. "The joint slipped. Because of me," Lena said. "No," Ren answered. "Because the path is broken." She shook her head. "This is too much. You should rest." Ren looked at the screen again. The suit was using extra power now. One more slip like that and it might shut down. Lena placed her hand on his arm. "Please, just stop for 1 hour." Ren looked around. There was a small patch of ground ahead. He stood slowly, carrying her there, gently. He placed her down and sat beside her, legs stretched out. The suit powered down part of its system to cool off. Steam rose from the joints as the metal cooled. The air smelled of heat and dust. Ren closed his eyes for a few minutes. Lena watched him in silence. He looked tired. His hands were strong, but they trembled slightly now. She reached into her bag and pulled out a water pack. She offered it to him. He took it without a word and drank slowly. "You've carried me for 2 days," she said, "and now the suit is failing." "It will hold," Ren said. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. "You could have walked away." He opened his eyes and looked at her. His voice was soft. "Because you wouldn't leave someone either." Lena didn't answer right away. She remembered when she first joined the mission. She had seen Ren working in silence, fixing broken machines, always in the background. No one paid much attention to him. But now, she saw him clearly. "You're stronger than anyone at camp," she said. "I only walk." Rin replied, "You carry more than me," she said. "You carry silence, worry, pain." He looked down at the soil. "That's what we do. For each other." Lena smiled. "You're more human than most people I've met." The sun moved lower in the sky. Shadows stretched across the hill. The scanner showed they were closer now. One more valley. One more rise. Our iron powered the suit. "Back on." It responded slowly, but was still working. He picked Lena up once again. She felt lighter now, though nothing had changed. "Let's go," she said. "This time I won't complain." Rin didn't reply. He just began walking again, his steps careful but sure. They moved through the trees, heading toward the last part of the journey. The wind had calmed, and a soft golden light filled the forest. Lena looked up at the sky. "I think the camp will be happy to see us," she said. "They will," Rin answered. And though the suit was slower, and the road was harder, they kept moving forward together. The third morning on Nova 3 began with golden light stretching over the hills. The trees glowed softly in the early sun. Small creatures moved in the grass, and the air was fresh after the long night. It was peaceful, but Rin had no time to stop and enjoy it. He had one goal left to reach the camp. The exhaust would move slowly now. It had carried Lena through storms, across rivers, and over rocky hills. Its legs clicked louder than before. One power light had gone out. The joints were stiff. Still, Rin kept going. Lena stayed quiet in his arms. She could feel the strain in the suit. Every step took more effort. Every pause lasted a little longer. Rin's breath came slower now. She looked up at him. "You can rest for a few minutes," she said gently. "We are close," he answered. "How close?" Rin turned his head slightly and pointed ahead, between two cliffs, far in the distance. She saw white towers and silver walls. The camp stood like a quiet promise in the light. Smoke rose from the cooking stations. The wind carried the sound of machines and people. Lena smiled. "We made it," Rin nodded, but didn't stop. The suit carried them forward step by step. Each movement was careful. Each lift of the leg took more from the suit's core. They followed a narrow path down into the last valley. The ground was softer here. Moss grew between rocks, and small flowers opened as they passed. The wind was gentle, moving Lena's hair across her face. Rin adjusted her in his arms. His eyes were tired now. His lips were dry, but he didn't speak. His hand still held her like she was something precious. They crossed a small bridge made of wood and stone. Lena remembered it. Just beyond it, the road turned wide and straight. It led directly to the gates of the camp. But just before they reached it, the exhaust gave a low sound. The lights on its arm turned red. A warning message blinked on Rin's wrist display. "Overheat." It read, "Shut down in 1 minute." Rin stopped. His chest rose and fell slowly. Lena looked at the screen. "You have to stop," she said. "It's going to power down." "I know," Rin said. Lena looked at the road. The camp was right there. "Less than 1 kilometer. Maybe less. You can put me down. Go the rest of the way alone. They'll send help." Rin didn't answer. He pressed a button on the panel. The suit beeped in protest. Another light turned red. "I'll be fine," Lena said again. "Please, you've done enough." Rin shook his head. "I'm not stopping now." He adjusted her again and began to walk. The suit moved, but slower than before. The warning sound continued. The joints made grinding noises. Sparks flicked out of the knee joint. But Rin didn't stop. Lena could feel the heat rising through the metal frame. The system was tired. So was Rin. His face was pale, his jaw tight. Sweat rolled down his temple. At the edge of the road, a voice called out, "Hey, there's someone's coming." More voices followed. Steps. A group of camp workers ran forward. One of them held a tablet. Another had a medical pack. "It's Rin," someone shouted. "And he's carrying Lena." The camp gates opened. Two security officers ran ahead. A medic rushed toward them. Lena turned her head. Relief filled her chest. Help was here. But Rin kept walking. He didn't stop until the first medic reached him. "Let us take her," The medic said. Ian nodded and knelt down slowly. The suit gave a final sound, then powered off, its legs locked, and the lights turned dark. Ren used the last of his strength to lay Lena down gently on a clean cloth. The team had spread on the ground. Then he sat back and closed his eyes. Lena reached for his hand. "You did it." He gave a small nod. "We did." The medics began checking her leg. One of them looked at Ren. "He needs water. Rest. That suit should have shut down hours ago." But Ren only leaned back against a tree near the road. His breathing was heavy, but steady. Lena looked up at the sky. The sun was high now. The same sun that had watched them through storms and valleys now smiled gently from above. A few hours later, Ren lay on a bed inside the medical wing. The suit had been removed. His arms were sore. His feet were swollen. But he was awake. Lena was in the room across from him. Her leg was wrapped, and the doctors said she would heal fully in time. She was smiling. She stood at the doorway with the help of a walker. "You should be resting," Ren said. "So should you," Lena replied. They looked at each other for a while. No one spoke. Finally, she walked closer and sat beside him. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for carrying me, but for believing I was worth the wait." Ren looked at her. "You were." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something. Small green leaf from the rare plant she had found before the quake. "I kept this," she said. "It survived everything. Like us." He took the leaf and held it carefully. Lena smiled. "You saved more than me. You saved this too." Ren placed the leaf on the table beside him. "I didn't do it alone. You kind of did," she said. He didn't answer, but she could see the quiet pride in his eyes. Outside the window, the wind moved through the trees. The world had not changed, but something inside both of them had. They had walked through the wild and come back whole, together. The days after the rescue were quiet, but full of small changes. Lena's leg was healing. The doctors said she would walk again soon. Ren stayed by her side, helping whenever he could. His presence calm and steady. The camp had returned to its usual rhythm. People moved between tents and machines, talking softly about the recent storm and the earth tremors. But for Ren and Lena, everything felt different now. One morning, the sun was bright through the medical tent's window. Lena sat on the edge of her bed, her leg wrapped carefully. Ren stood nearby, checking the suit's parts that had been repaired. "I can walk today," Lena said. Smiling, Ian looked up. "That is good news." She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood slowly. Her leg felt weak but strong enough to hold her weight. Ren offered his hand, steady and sure. Lena took it and stepped forward. "It is like the first time all over again," she said quietly. Ren smiled. "Only this time, you will not be alone." She looked at him for a moment. No words were needed. Later that day, Lena and Ren walked outside the camp. The sun was warm, and the air smelled fresh. The plants near the greenhouses waved gently in the breeze. Lena stopped beside a small patch of soil. She knelt and touched the earth with her hands. "This place is going to be my garden," she said. Ren watched her. "You are ready?" "I am," she replied. Together, they started to clear the ground. Ren lifted rocks, and Lena dug small holes for seeds. They worked side by side, their steps slow but sure. As they worked, Lena talked about the plants she wanted to grow. Flowers from earth, bright and colorful. Trees that could stand the strange weather of Nova 3. She dreamed of a garden where the camp could find peace and beauty. Ren listened and helped. He was not a gardener, but he knew strength and patience. He learned quickly how to use the tools, how to make space for new life. At night, they sat by a small fire. The stars shone above, clear and bright. Lena looked up and smiled. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For carrying me, for not giving up." Ren's eyes were soft. "I did what was right." Lena reached out and held his hand. "You saved me." "No," Ren said. "We saved each other." Days passed. Lena grew stronger. The garden grew a little too, with tiny green shoots breaking through the soil. One afternoon, a group of camp workers came to see the garden. They smiled and helped, bringing more seeds and water. "This will be good for everyone," one said. "Yes," Lena agreed. "A place to rest and remember why we are here." Ren stood beside her, watching the small community grow. He thought about the journey they had made, the storms, the long walks, the quiet moments between. He thought about the future, a future where they worked together, where the garden grew tall and strong, where people lived and thrived on this new world. One evening, as the sun set behind the cliffs, Rin and Lena stood at the edge of their garden. The sky was a deep orange, the stars beginning to show. Lena looked at Rin and smiled. "Will you walk with me tomorrow?" Rin nodded. "I will." They turned toward the camp, ready to face whatever came next, together.